Let's talk about the running back position. I think what hangs over this whole conversation is, what is Nick Chubb come September? Yeah. Is he not able to play? Is he able to play with limitations?
Is he out half the season?
Is he able to play with no limitations, but he's not quite as good? Or is he the same guy? That's 4 different possibilities. It's a big spectrum.
And the
Browns have to make a decision on potentially adding a veteran running back without having the answer to any of those possibilities. So, but here's the thing. Running backs don't get paid, especially older guys. The running back market is going to be flooded. But you got a list there, Anthony, of who's available?
Yes, if we can take tag board here. You've got.
So look at this list.
Oh, Lord.
Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, DeAndre Swift, Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler, Joe Mixon. I thought he'd be cut last year. He wasn't. The Bengals, I'll give them credit for this. When they sign a guy to a contract, they often don't cut him, even if you should, because they honor the contract. That's the one thing they're really good about with money. But I think it'll change this year. I do think Joe Mixon will be cut. So that's 7 guys that have been starting running backs.
I need one of them.
And Zach Moss, who's not on that list. And he's
exactly.
in a different category than those guys historically.
The money on these guys
have one of them.
Is not going to be high.
No.
That being, and part of me is like, the cap's fictional. It doesn't matter. Jimmy doesn't care. But if they're not going to spend a ton of money at running back, I just can't see that happening.
Okay, before we talk about this,
I think most of those guys, outside of maybe Barkley, are bargain basement prices.
$5-6 million, right?
At the most.
Can I ask one question before we dive into this? Because it's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
Let's say they restructure Chubb's deal, which I think we all agree they're going to do.
Yeah.
Is it possible to sign a guy for more guaranteed money than Nick Chubb would get this year?
Yeah.
How'd that sit with Nick?
I don't think they would do that.
Because Chubb don't. Listen, here's the thing.
They could, I agree, but I doubt they will.
Here's the thing, Chubb, I don't get about Chubb. He don't care nothing about that, bro. Nick Chubb cares about championships. That's the only thing he's talking about right now. And he done seen his mortality. When you have multiple knee injuries, right, he's probably telling them, chomping at his best years was with Kareem Hunt. His best years was take these carries so I could get me about 260 carries and do my Nick Chubb thing and get these boys up out of here. He's telling them, look, get me one of them dudes. Right now, you can, because here's the thing. It's Operation Stockpile does not take in consideration any money. We don't care about that money.
Okay. That's an important caveat.
Yeah.
Okay? I am more in that camp. Not as far as G, but I'm more on his side of that camp.
I have 2 options for this, by the way.
To me, there's an easy answer as to who the Browns should sign from that list. Go ahead. Who do you guys got?
Saquon. All things being equal,
you're wrong.
Saquon.
That's interesting, but you're wrong.
Listen,
I was calling for Saquon at the trade deadline last year.
I like
no, give me one guy. Give me one guy. Put the list up again.
I know what both going to say Josh Jacobs.
Incorrect. Pick your one guy, because it's an easy answer.
Because I think I have a guy I want them to sign.
Yeah.
But it's not Barkley.
Who's your guy?
So, okay.
Is this who you want them to sign, or who you think?
I'm telling you guys the perfect fit for this team.
The guy that they should sign is Austin Eckler.
No.
The guy that I would love and jump up and down is Saquon Barkley. And then there's the medium guy in Josh Jacobs.
Before you go.
Hold on, Earl, I want Earl's comment. Well, Earl, who's your guy?
Earl is currently on the phone. He had to step
away
for a minute.
I said Saquon is the ideal fit.
Yeah.
I want DeAndre Swift.
Okay. Very interesting, but you are wrong, and you are wrong. The perfect fit for the Cleveland Browns is one Mr. Tony Pollard.
Really?
No.
First of all, Tony Pollard, I believe, is the youngest of the bunch.
Is he the youngest?
No, Swift is.
Swift? Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Swift been in the league for a long
second
time.
youngest of the bunch.
He's only been in the league for 4 years. It's shocking how.
Right.
Yeah,
Tony Pollard had his worst season the last few years last year. Why? You know why?
Well, he was coming off a broken ankle.
Well, that was part of it.
And he was the lead back, didn't have Zeke.
Tony Pollard is a 1B. Those guys, put up that list again, please, Anthony. Those other guys are all 1As.
Yeah.
All right?
No.
Eckler, I think, is going over the cliff. I'm not interested.
Swift, I don't know if Swift's a 1A.
I think Swift's a 1A. I believe he's a 1A. Now, I'm okay. Swift will be my second choice. Josh Jacobs, I'm not interested. He wants to, because Barkley and Jacobs are every down backs. I don't need that. I got Nick Chubb. I don't need an every down back. I don't like the fit of them together. Okay. Derrick Henry I love, and I still think he's got one good year left, but he's the same player as Nick Chubb. I mean, the same type of player as Nick Chubb. They need to get a back that's good at catching passes. That's not his thing either.
That's why I said Eckler.
All right? Now, to me, Eckler is going over the cliff. He was great at that.
I just think he's too
I'm
old.
worried he's going over the cliff.
How old is he?
So he's like 30 or whatever.
He's 29, but he's a million
He looked
touches.
awful last
He
year.
was really slow.
Okay.
Now, that brought me down to Pollard and Swift. Now, I think when I look at Tony Pollard, he is an elite pass-catching back. He was when Zeke was there. And he was so good as a guy who would get 8, 10 touches, 12 touches a game. Once you got too high on him, he's not good. Now, Swift can do that too, but and he can catch passes also. But he's been injury-prone in his career, and he's been up and down. Pollard was not as good last year, but for the most part, he's been consistent in his career, and outside of the one injury that ended the season before, he's mostly been healthy. He's young. I think he's only 26. Which is young for a running back.
Second youngest on that board.
Second youngest on the board, and he's great at catching passes, and he knows and they know that he is a 1B, perfect combination with Nick Chubb. Perfect. That's the guy to get.
Let me tell you why.
And I don't think he's going to get a ton of money.
Let me tell you why you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I agree in the premise of what you're saying. But Tony Pollard,
Yeah.
in his last year in Dallas, before Zeke left, thought he was the best back on that team. He's coming off a legitimate, it's not catastrophic in the sense of Nick Chubb. He broke his ankle. So a very difficult injury to come back from. When you watch anything from 2023 from Tony Pollard, the explosiveness you saw in 2021 and 2022 was not there. His yards per catch.
Right, but it's a year later.
Fair.
It usually takes a year,
I'm
and
just
now
saying. Fair.
by the time next season starts, he's nearly 2 full years off the injury.
Sure.
He's young enough.
Sure, maybe.
Go ahead.
It's a running back. It's a very difficult physical position.
Yeah.
The reason I like Swift were all the same reasons you mentioned about Pollard. I just think Swift is younger and has less wear and tear and is healthier. The fewest amount of receptions DeAndre Swift's ever had in his career is 40. He had 39 last year, but 40.
Yeah.
46, 48, 62, and then 40 last year in Philadelphia. Over 1,000 rushing yards behind a very talented Philadelphia offensive line. You look at his touchdown, only had 5. Well, they did the tush push on every first and goal, second and goal. The numbers could have been
But he also had the
higher.
advantage of playing next to a quarterback that ran the ball a lot.
Which goes back to your 1B option.
Yeah.
He's already been in situations where he's not the primary runner. He's
So is Pollard.
We're just picking our different flavors.
Yeah,
I
I
think
hear
we're
you.
saying the same thing.
Right.
I just like the younger, more explosive Swift. You like the more experienced,
I think Pollard will have the
But we're kind of
explosiveness
saying,
back this
for the
year.
same arguments.
Yes,
we're
yes.
What
saying different
happens?
guys.
What happens if we're assuming here? What happens if Nick Chubb is just a 1B? There's a possibility Nick Chubb come back and it's like he's a 1B.
But in my mind, and you may be right, if the Browns keep Nick Chubb, it's because they think he's going to be that guy again.
Oh, I think they would have to keep him regardless.
I don't think so.
I think
Yeah, they can't cut Chubb.
they can't.
I don't agree.
Unless you refuse to take a pay cut, they can't cut Chubb.
Why? People going to stop watching the Browns? As much as we all love Chubb, is anybody going to stop watching if they cut Nick Chubb? They'd get bad PR and everybody be angry. By the time the season started.
But if they're bad and Deshaun Watson don't play well, somebody gonna get fired.
They're going to get crushed anyway.
They gonna get fired.
But I just think, I don't think, to get like a Saquon Barkley, you're going to have to, like he's the one guy that might get a bigger contract. I don't know.
I mean, Saquon.
He's the best of the group.
Saquon.
He's always hurt.
As a 1A, if you can't, it's just, I don't know, maybe it's me. If you say Saquon Barkley and Nick Chubb, I'm like.
But here's the
But
thing.
then you can't throw the ball 70%.
Here's the problem.
Sure I can.
Here's the problem.
Deshaun wants to throw. As his words, I want to throw that
Mike,
thing.
we always remember Saquon Barkley as a rookie, which was special.
Oh, and then he got hurt, but he actually hasn't been as
He
hurt as you
played.
think
He played.
I know
He
what
played
he
well
is.
last year.
He has a
He
Mike
wasn't
Williams.
that good last year.
I'm with you.
They had a trash. They had all
Their
guys.
offense was-
Their
he has-
offense was
That's
horrible.
fair.
Saquon has a Mike Williams-esque injury history, where you think he's hurt way more than he is
Right.
because he's always banged
But he's
up.
played with a lot of injuries, and it's hurt his effectiveness.
But he was great 2 years ago.
I think somebody will pay him a lot of money. I don't think the Browns should be that team.
I agree.
The Browns, as a running team, when they are healthy up front, they are one of the best running teams in the game, period. And I think you put him behind a Deshaun Watson that can do a bunch of things with an increased wide receiver position where you got guys that are deep vertical threats and Njoku. I just think he's set up for having one of the. For me, I want people that is going to buy in when I tell them this is Operation Stockpile and say, listen, you might not get all you're going to get, but when you get the ball, you're going to be wide open.
Well, that's not going to be Saquon.
I think if all of a sudden you sign Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard, I mean, you are loaded with weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Swift. I mean, for the same reason.
Or Swift,
Pollard.
fine.
I'm
He's my
just
second
happy.
choice.
I am happy. I'm just happy you two people have now come around to say, yeah, we need to be looking at this running back position.
Yeah, I was
because for a lot of times, people, if you mention it, no.
I was for the most part been against going after a veteran running back, but I've changed my mind on that.
I think when you see, because I was always just draft a guy, but when you see the market, and to Bull's earlier point, there's so many guys out there. These guys are going to be cheap. And another guy we didn't even mention, who I wouldn't be totally opposed to, would be Deonta Foreman out of Chicago, who's also a free agent. I think you could sign for like
you get it for nothing.
$1.5 million.
Zach
like
Moss,
them all. I like
all
them
these
all.
guys.
Yeah.
But I think you can get. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think Pollard or Swift are getting 5, 6, 7 million max.
Yeah,
I think.
And plus, I'm not going to have to lock into them for more than 1 year. So if it doesn't work out, I move on.
And look, man.
market dictates everything.
Take a look at the passing yards in the playoffs, right? Take a look at what the dramatic drop in passing yards are when you go from week 17 to that first week. People ain't throwing for 300 yards, man. Like, guys, you know, the Baltimore Ravens couldn't even throw for 200, 300. Patrick Mahomes wasn't throwing for 300. But what they can do is, if you want to beat Kansas City, you got to pound out them third downs. I need them to be on the field a while and moving the ball down the field. And 2 good running backs is better than just one medium one.
Now, Kansas City did it mostly with one running back, to be fair.
Yeah.
And he was a 7th round pick. But they got it right.
But they found a diamond in the rough with Pacheco.
Yeah.
And by the way, they had Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round they drafted.
Yeah.
They was like, well, listen, we got Pacheco. He's better. Get up out of here.
That's it.
Edwards-Helaire is also a free agent who, if Cleveland wants to go in a straight
I'm
pass, I don't like him. I'm just saying he could fit if Chubb's your workhorse, if you think he's back to that, this the pass-catching back, scat back, third down guy.
I like the idea of Pollard or Swift with Chubb. You keep Ford as your third back.
Yep.
And that's it. Then keep it moving, as G. Bush would say.
Keep it pushing.